Hello, everybody who is hopping on the call. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to give it just a minute here and allow a few more people to join us, and then we'll get things kicked off. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This is a mechanical content update. We are talking all things RFAs with our content expert, Lucas Espinoza. Just as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. We'll forward the recording to all registrants, and you can find all of the Evolve webinar recordings and more demos and helpful resources on the Evolve YouTube channel. So make sure to follow us over there if you're not already. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please submit them using the Q&A function in the Zoom toolbar. And we may have some time at the end of the session to take a few of your questions. And with that, I'll pass things over to Lucas to get us started today.
Thanks, Marina. All right, so mechanical content update. I have a lot to go over today. If you've been following along the past few months, some of this might be repeat, but there has been developments on pretty much every front that I've been working on, as well as some new stuff for the future that I'm going to be showing off today as well. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so first thing, I'm just gonna go over the agenda here, and then we're gonna jump into the big topic of why RFA. So we're gonna look at RFAs, ITMs, and that whole conversation. Do a quick recap of some of the stuff we've done in the past year. I'm gonna hone in on user-driven development, why it's so important, why I need to hear from you guys, and what it's led to so far. We're gonna look at the upcoming 8.0 content that'll be coming out soon. We'll take a little break there after I go over that and open up Revit and actually look at some of the stuff that's been built, look at some of the functionality that's been added, some of the new tools that will be available to you in the upcoming content. From there, we'll jump back, look at some of the stuff that's in progress, coming up next right after 8.0, and then look at down the road as well. Some really exciting things on our roadmap that I will be able to share with you guys today and get your input on, hopefully. So, all right, so let's talk about RFAs first. When we talk about RFAs, we're talking about Revit families, right? Before I go too deep into that, I want to make it very clear that we are not abandoning ITMs. I know a large amount of our customer base on the mechanical side is ITM focused. We are not abandoning that. I will elaborate a little bit on this later. We have some cool updates coming in the near future. But RFAs are important. And we recognize that they provide value to both workflows, whether you're drawing fabrication part, pipe and duct, or RFA pipe and duct. There are ways that RFAs can help you. With both workflows, that's our endpoints, right? Whether that's a rooftop unit, a boiler, an air handling unit, a pump, whatever. Both sides of the modeling workflow need those additional pieces of content inside the Revit environment to produce a fully functioning BIM model in Revit. Additionally, additional supports, things like our trapeze families, things, certain hangers aren't available in ITM form or are very complicated to make. And we can create some really cool RFA assemblies that provide an alternative to their ITM equivalents or lacking thereof. For RFA dedicated workflows, if any of you are in that realm, or maybe you're thinking about moving away from ITMs, we are expanding in this direction. We want to provide a full start to end workflow support. That means, whether you're drawing duct, pipe, some valves, or the hangers and supports that fall in between there. If you want to do all of that in RFA, we want to be there for you. So that is something we are working towards in the next couple quarters here. So to kind of just summarize this whole thing here, we want to give you options. Whether you are an ITM shop wanting to switch to RFAs, or you're an RFA shop and you don't want to have to learn some the ITM database management side, you want to have someone in-house, you want to stick with RFAs, we want to be there to support whatever workflow works for you. With that said, let's take a look at what we developed in 7.4 really quick. The content I'm going to show here, I'm only going to touch on really quickly some of the highlights. What I will say, a month from now, we will be doing another webinar that'll go over some of this content a little bit more in depth, particularly in regards to how to configure some of it, because it is highly customizable and requires a little bit of initial setup. But I've tried to build it in such a way that it's intuitive and makes sense. So join us a month from now. You'll be seeing some information come out in the next week here, hopefully by the end of the week, about that webinar. But with that said, let's take a look at that content. So one of the big ones that we created was some generic DIY equipment. The purpose of this thing was to get the building blocks in your hand and in your hands and make it easy for you to take a cut sheet, take a submittal, and build out equipment that works for you, that is lightweight, that looks the way you need it to look, has the dimensions that you need, and has the key features that you need in order to get your modeling done. I know the struggle of trying to find that exact BIM model for that submittal data, and you found one, but it's either old or whatever. We wanted to create a way for you to generate that yourself, and that's what that family does. It has our native embedded layout points, roof curb, housekeeping pad, clearance zones, all that good stuff in it as well. It's hopefully very easy to use. Like I said, in our next webinar, a month from now, the third Wednesday of October, we will be going over this even more in depth. But additionally, moving down the line in a ducted system here, we created a customizable terminal unit. So this could be either a variable air frequency or constant air frequency, air volume. So we made this thing so that you could change the inlets, a bunch of different options for the control boxes. Is it fan powered or not? What does the outlet box look like? How is it being supported? All kinds of little goodies in this family that you can use to customize for your specific job. Then we went on and created some air terminal units as well. We created a linear slot and a multifunctional lay-in. Each of these supports any air system. The out-of-the-box ones, it's a bunch of different families for specific air systems. In each of these families, you get to choose which air system you want to use. You can choose whether it's round or rectangular duct that's feeding it. And my favorite part of this was a off-the-cuff user request that just made sense. We built in some functionality for automatic duct sizing based on a data table of CFM values associated with sizes. Really cool stuff. If you are a current Evolve customer, there are videos on Evolve University that show you how to make use of some of this stuff. But like I said, the upcoming webinars will be going over them as well. I think there's one more here. Yeah. Rooftop supports. These were a big request. And I've had some follow-up requests that I'm going to be looking into in the near future here. But we basically built out the entire Eaton catalog of rooftop supports, including some pipe rollers and some strut supports. And we built out a customizable strut assembly. Really neat. I've actually seen a couple of people use this now and gotten some great feedback on how we can improve upon it. And then finally, just a small one here. In case you don't want to use the built-in roof curb or housekeeping pad, or maybe you've got a family that you just need to add this for, we added those as well, so that you can easily get that stuff documented within your models. All right, so that's 7.4. All that stuff is available to you now if you are a current Evolve customer. If you are not an Evolve customer yet, these will be available to you if you reach out to us and grab a license. Some really cool stuff, some really neat features involved here. But let's take a look at the future. And that future is very much driven by you. I think, so we're in September now, so about 15 months ago, I posted on our features board asking for feedback from our customers as to what RFAs we should focus on building. Now, some of that stuff was on the previous slide and we've built out already. A lot of endpoint focused stuff, equipment, terminal units, terminal boxes, all those little goodies that support both RFA and ITM workflows. But there were other requests as well, including additional hardware. Let's expand it. Expanding the hanger library, more pipe hangers. I don't think we really had any before other than a single J hanger, or no, single mini hanger. Yeah. Again, requests for hardware. This is just such a common one. Now we're going up to 1.5 inch. Okay. Gripple, cable hangers, getting very popular these days. And adding hangers for round duct as well. Okay, something we could probably do there. And then again, that hardware. And that last one, channel iron trapeze. I was really happy when that one came in. If you note the date there, that's actually really recent. I had just finished building something like this out, and I was able to reach out and expand upon that further. But anyway, all these requests came from our customers, came from you. This is just a quick gathering of them. We hear these insights on our customer support calls, on our demos, and this feedback all gets back to me in one way or another. And these were some of the most popular ones. So we decided to take some action with our 8.0 release. So this release has been heavily focused on new hanger supports for mechanical. What that looks like. Previously, in 7.4, we had this smattering of strut trapeze and that single mini that I mentioned earlier. With 8.0, we have nearly tripled the amount of supports for mechanical. If you look closely here, there's a handful of channel-based trapeze supports, some using angled channel, some using C channel. There's a back-to-back channel that I love. This was a request that I received from, I think, 4 customers over the span of 48 hours. Just coincidentally enough, this idea of a strong back trapeze came up 4 different times independently. And I just had to dive into it and make that happen. If we look down, we see these cable hangers. We'll dive into these a little bit later. They are meant to effectively be generic gripple hangers. We have some new pipe hangers, including clevis, a couple different rollers, some really, really neat stuff in here. So what does that look like a little bit closer? Duct hangers, duct hanger assemblies. 5 of them. You can see here there's a cable hanger with cable attachment. Then we have 4 different saddle duct hangers. 2 full, 2 half. That should say half there. That's a typo. And then each one has the option for either rod and cable. So we'll dive into the details of that a little bit closer, but some nice options there. I have some others on the drawing board. I'm just waiting to finish scoping on, but those will be coming at a later date. Then we have 5 pipe hanger assemblies, including a band. I've heard a couple different terms for this: band, teardrop, or swivel. J hanger, clevis roller, and trapeze roller hanger. Each of these has some unique characteristics as well as some common functionality to them. And then we have our 5 new trapeze hanger assemblies. I mentioned those angle channel. We've got a single and dual tier for that. We have a C channel that can be flipped up or down. And then that strong back-to-back C channel that I mentioned is there as well. Something I'll note about all these assemblies, very similar to our other trapeze assemblies, our strut trapeze, they have a lot of nested parts in them to help you identify bill of materials, capture that bill of materials for what it's going to take to assemble these things and get them built in your fabrication shops. So, some other key features within those hangers. As per those requests we saw on the user development slide, I've expanded hardware support up to 1.5 inches, 9 total options that you can see here. I've created some new Revit schedules to assist with assembly fabrication. We're going to dive into this a little bit deeper in a little bit here. I'm hoping that this takes off, and if the feedback I get on this is good, I'll basically be taking this and applying it to any of our content that has this assembly prefix to it. Basically being that it's a host family with nested parts, it should be part of this assembly methodology. And then we've added in some new hanger customization options. The configuration of these hangers is going to be a little bit different from what you've seen in our previous trapeze hangers. We've added in some new ways to adjust the rod. We've added in some customization of the descriptions. We've enhanced the way you can capture zone of influence, that little clearance area at the top of the hanger. And probably my favorite part is what we've done with the ancillaries, those nested components, and how you can now customize those on your individual assemblies. We'll look at that a lot deeper in a little bit. And then finally, we've added some new parameter sync rules. These are going to help generate descriptions for all your nested parts and your assemblies. And I'm going to show you those one by one in the model today as I load them in and put them to good use. All right. So this is the part where I'm going to demo some of this functionality for you. I'm running a in-house beta build here of 8.0. Not quite out to the public yet, but it will be soon, hopefully. Before I dive into this, any questions so far? I'm going to take a quick pause here. I don't see any. Doing all right? All right, let's dive in then. So let's look at, actually, before we look at these trapeze families, let's look at the family browser here. You'll see that I'm filtered down to just hangers right now, and this is very reminiscent of that screenshot I showed you before in the slide. You'll notice one other thing, if you didn't before, the images have been updated for all the existing trapeze families as well, just to make them a little bit easier to see. One thing I'll point out too, if you go to grid view and you roll down to hangers here and you hover over any one of these, the image is a little bit larger, the little preview image. I don't know how many people actually navigate through this grid view method. I do prefer the card view, but one of the things I have on my roadmap is to have that enlarged view get applied to the card view here as well. So when you hover these, they get a little larger too. So something in the future to look forward to. Anyway, let's take a look at these families a little bit closer. So integration with Evolve tools. I have some middle news there. The trapeze families will place automatically. They can be used with our hanger placement tool with 8.0. However, the configuration dialog menu, when you're in here developing your profiles, a lot of the parameters in here are kind of legacy for our old strut families. We need to remodel this this view, if you will, and that's something we will be doing in the future. For now, for the purposes of these trapeze families, you can set up a profile that simply selects the given trapeze you want to use and just ignore the rest of this. What you'll end up doing is handling all the configuration of that particular hanger at the type properties level for that hanger. So something to be aware of there. Pipe and duct hangers, while we did get them into this release, I wanted to get them in your hands. They won't be supported within the place hangers tool just yet. We need another enhancement to this tool for that to work. Largely, there basically needs to be another tab right here for single hanger placement. But we are working on that. That is something we anticipate to be ready in the near future so that you can automatically place these new pipe, duct, and cable hangers. With all that said, all of these hangers, if you look closely, they do have our layout point in here. So they all work with our Evolve Point Manager tool. So if you place these, you will be able to extract those points for use outside of Revit. All right, so let's dive into these trapeze families. If we look through, if I just kind of click through each of these, you'll notice the instance properties here don't change a whole lot. That's very much intentional. I wanted these to be very consistent. I think the only change there was that our angled channel trapeze has this additional offset height because it does have the option for a second tier. But let's take a look through some of the parameters here. We look coming down, overall trapeze width and these mounting heights. These are things that we will automatically write to if you are using our placement tool. So you don't need to worry about them, but you can customize them after the fact if you need to. We've provided a way to adjust the offsets left to right, should you need to, of the rods. And then probably the biggest change is the mounting attachment. In our existing strut trapeze families, we have some nested families in there for beam clamp, deck insert, something else, a couple others in there. What we have been finding is that those have been kind of dragging down those families a little bit. And it's been a bit of a hurdle to accommodate everyone's requests for the various different types of attachment points. So we got to thinking, what's actually important about that attachment? And our conclusion was that we really just need to capture a bill of materials of what's there. And then 3D wise, coordination wise, what's the size? So to that end, we've added in this this mounting attachment description, and then a height, length, and width parameters to change the size of that attachment. If we zoom in, you can see that there's just this little square here that represents our mounting attachment from a conceptual level. So this is a little bit of a divergence from what we were doing. It's a shift to lighten the load a little bit and provide you with a little bit more customization. And you're going to see this philosophy more and more in these families as we work our way through them today. With this one, what I want to point out before I go any further, we've added in the first of many enhancements to customize part descriptions for all these nested components within our assembly families. What I mean by that is we're effectively controlling what this thing is called from this parameter. Now, if I were to go to my bill of materials right here, let's go down. Did I not undo that? Give me a moment real quick. Didn't. All right, we're going to, that's fine. Let's do a little bit here. All right. So if we look at our bill of materials, we have a bunch of assemblies here, right? But what we don't have, we have a bunch of blanks here that represent all those nested parts. In fact, if I was going to go to my schedule here and add in family and type, let's do that. We'll actually see, and let's sort by that as well, just temporarily here. We'll see that that is all my nested components, but they don't have any descriptions. Now, that's very much intentional for right now, because we have added some functionality to capture this a little bit better, more dynamically. And let's look at how we would do that for the attachment itself. Let's go back to the trapeze families. We see that there is some description here. Let's go ahead and change this to deck insert. Now we don't see anything show up. Oh, we do. Okay, that one did work. Never mind. That is going to work the way I think it is. My point there, we can customize what that value actually is by changing at the host level, right? As opposed to before where we had a bunch of different selections, we can really start to expand our options here to whatever we need them to be given a scenario. Moving on though, let's take a look. Before I go on, let me see. We have our typical layout points in here. These will work with our point manager. As we work our way down, get rid of this for a second, you'll see that there is a default description in here, two-tiered angled channel trapeze. Okay, you'll see a new parameter here called assembly ID. I'm going to come back to this in a little bit, but this is something that's kind of critical towards our whole fabrication of assemblies philosophy. We're going to look at that a little bit closer in a little bit here. Before I do though, let's take a look at the type properties. I mentioned before, you won't be able to configure these hangers within the hanger placement tool, and instead you'll be doing that through the type properties menu. And for each of these trapeze supports, there are going to be some common parameters and then some unique ones. Off the bat, we have some material options in here, either aluminum or steel. That'll just affect the nested part. But coming up, we have rod adjustments, right? So we can add a constant value. Let's say we always want to add a foot to our rod length or 6 inches. That's what this parameter here is going to be for. Then let's say we always want to round up to the nearest 6 inches or nearest 1 inch, whatever the case may be. That second option there is going to allow us to do that as well. You'll notice that center rod here is a type parameter versus an instance parameter, as it was with our existing strut trapeze. This was a decision born from a few conversations with some of our customers. I'm waiting to hear feedback on that. We may change this, but that will add that center rod to the trapeze family. Go ahead and click that. We should see that. No problem. All right. All right. These are some specific parameters that I'm going to come back to. Let's look at hardware size. As promised, we've expanded to 9 different options here, all the way up to 1.5 inches. So you really have some much greater flexibility here in terms of hardware size and hanging some heavier duty stuff. Then we have this ancillary information. I'm going to jump back to this one as well after I go through some of the specifics, but some really neat functionality here. Zone of influence, we've enhanced this a little bit. You can uniquely customize the top or bottom of the zone of influence here. So let's say the top needed to be stretched up 9 inches for a reason, but the bottom is fine where it's at. You can make that adjustment and see that it only extends in one direction. As opposed to previously, it would have extended equally 9 inches below, and that might not have been as accurate as we would have liked. Let's look at some of these custom values in here. We have the option to change the, so this is angled channel, so we can change the top or front leg size to whatever we need it to be. So maybe this is actually some 4 inch by 4 inch angled channel. We'll see that tier 1 is going to update there. Now you'll notice that tier 2 did not update. That's because it is controlled independently. So you can actually adjust these independent from one another, depending on what your application is. But if you do want them to be equal, you can come in here and apply that. You'll notice with the type I am working with, it's the 2-tier, and as such, the enable tier 2 is checked. If I were to uncheck that, we would see that second tier would disappear. Thickness, we have some stock options here, so we could change that as well. And again, that's controlled independently between the 2 individual tiers. And we do have a custom option. If we select that, we can change this to, maybe it's 5/8 inch to make that, but it's going to just thicken just a little bit there. There we go. And again, controlled independently. So we've tried to dial in what customization might be needed for this specific family. I'm really eager to hear back. Is this enough? Are there other options that we need to add, etc. So ancillaries. Let me run through the other trapeze families, and then we're going to jump back to this because it's pretty neat. But let's look at the other unique parameters in each of these trapeze families. So this is the angle channel as well. You'll notice again, the enabled tier 2 is unchecked, so we see a single channel. All the other parameters are going to be the same. Let's look at our strong back, our back-to-back channel trapeze. So very similar parameters with regards to the rod adjustments. This pipe selection, this is key towards the actual sizing of this thing. If we zoom in, the back-to-back gap here is defined by the outer diameter of that pipe. Now, rather than try to guess what type of pipe you're using and what OD it is and yada yada, I basically just gave you the option to input whatever pipe you have here. The feedback we received was that what a lot of people are doing here is simply using some scrap pipe they have on the job site, cutting it down to size and welding it to the channel here. The actual anvil assembly that I found, they were using square washers here. And one customer I spoke to, kind of laughed at at that idea just because of the cost that would be associated with that many square washers of that size, as opposed to just taking some scrap pipe and welding it in place here. So this critical dimension here is really key because it does influence the width of, oh, that's right, the width of this assembly here. Didn't do what I needed to do. Oh yeah, it did. It went too far. Yeah, okay. Sorry, that looked funny. There we go. That should drive that. Yeah. Okay. So let's see, what else do we have for properties in there? The channel thickness, very similar to what we saw with the angled channel family. Leg height, we have some stock options in here. And if we change these, we should see those adjust outward and inward. And we also have some custom options as well. Channel width, same concept. We have some stock options that will adjust. And then you can also come in here and customize if you need to. Let's see, what else do we need to see? You can change out what that washer is. And then hardware, very similar to what we saw before in the angle channel. We have those 9 options up to 1.5 inches. All right, let's look at our last channel trapeze before looking at the ancillary information. Within this one, we have 2 options. So we have this either down or up. It's funny the way this one came about. I had gotten some feedback from a couple customers about building this one way, and the very next person I talked to and demoed it to requested that the channel be flipped the other direction. So naturally, I went in and just built out the option to flip it on a type basis here. So that's what this channel orientation is going to be. Similar to our past channel trapeze there, we have some thickness options, leg heights, and channel width that we can change. We have our 9 hardware options and these ancillaries. So let's talk about what this ancillary section actually does. But before we do that, we need to load in a couple new parameter sync rules. I showed you before the bill of materials. I think that's the schedule I have open. Yep. And let's get rid of this column. I want to undo one demo in here. Oh, it is working the way it should. Okay. I need to wipe out some of these default values. These should be blank by default. I'm gonna have to review these now. That's all right. And let's get rid of this column. So we have a bunch of blank line items here. And that's largely because the nested components don't have descriptions yet to them, evolved description values. The way we're handling that now is going to be through a new parameter sync rule. So I'm going to come up to the configuration exchange here. I'm going to load that rule in. It's going to be located in my evolve install in our default configurations batch file. We're going to make a couple trips to this today, so bear with me. One key thing that I have done with this file is really cleaned it up. I've standardized on some of the descriptions and then the grouping and subgrouping as well as the types. So what that will allow us to do, we're coming in here, this might seem overwhelming at first, but we know what we're looking for. We're looking for a part description. So let's go ahead under group here within our grid view and change this, filter down to just part descriptions. And that makes this a little bit easier to look at now, a little bit more digestible. Now in this case, we're going to be looking for hardware. And there it is. We could sort this by alphabetical order, by subgroup. That'll help us find things a little bit easier. But I'm going to go ahead and grab that hardware one. And while I'm here, I'm also going to grab attachments and this metal stock U channel, as well as the metal stock angle channel. I'm going to load these 4 into our project. And then I'm going to hop over to parameter sync. This is a standard of ours in that any rules you bring in through the default configuration exchange are going to be disabled by default and set their execute on set to manual only. So I'm going to go ahead and enable those for today. And I'm going to set each of these to any update. Now, let's take a look at those rules really quick before I go any further. The metal stop ones are a little bit more complex. They actually do have some background scripts running to them, but the hardware and attachments ones are actually really simple. All they're doing is concatenating a couple parameters within the families. In this case, I've added a couple new parameters here called part size and part type. And then we have our old hardware finish here as well. So all it's doing is taking all three of those and putting them into a single line item, a common line item, that being evolved description as our standard. So if we go ahead, I'm just going to go ahead and refresh all these by giving them a nudge. If we flip back to our bill of materials now, we're going to see that this is mostly populating okay. Not sure why that one's not. Let me take a look here really quick. I think that's going to be some other attachments. Oh, dun, dun, dun. Did we bring in the attachments? Might not. Okay. Oh, those are the pipe hangers. That's why. You know what? Yeah. Why don't we refresh all these? That should take out. Should clear that whole thing up. There we go. Okay. So what we saw happen here is those parameter sync rules went to work concatenating all that information. And now we have a proper bill of materials. Now, previously, this was all handled by rigid formulas within the families. What that meant is if you ever wanted to add another size or another type, you had to edit the family and you had to make an adjustment to some very complex and lengthy nested if statement formulas. Very, very tenuous to do. This opens the door to much more customization. And that's how we come back to that ancillary information. For the time being, what do I want to do here? Let's take a look at this individual trapeze here. I'm going to edit the type on this, and I'm going to come in here and make some adjustments to my ancillary information. For instance, I'm going to change this to say, you know what, I want aluminum, I don't know, U channel. And I want hex nut and some part code that my fab shop knows what that means. And I want some other code for this, 1001. And all of these are going to be stainless. Okay. So I made this custom, all these customizations to the host family here, right? What I should see now when I go to my bill of materials, that is now reflected within this. There's that aluminum U channel that we changed, and here's the lock washer, here's the hex nut, etc. So to my point, by adding in that, by breaking the formula that was in all those nested parts and adding those parameter sync rules, we now have this, can take advantage of evolved description while also having full customization over the nested components within these families. And this is going to be a common theme as we look through all these families. The one question there. I'm going to come back to that question. All right, so customization. I'm running way short on time. That's not great. I'm going to run through these other ones a little bit faster here. They have a lot of similar characteristics, so we should be all right. All right, so that's the trapeze families with the ancillaries. Let's look at the pipe hangers. We have 5 different pipe hangers: clevis, J hanger, clevis roller, swivel ring, and a trapeze roller. Each one of these has a nominal diameter with a tooltip that tells you the supported sizes. If you choose a size that's too large or isn't supported, it'll just go to the next largest size. But like this one, if I go up to 18, we should see this guy get fairly large. There we go. Pretty neat stuff. Something else you'll notice here is the recommended hardware size. This is based on the Anvil data, product data that I built these off of. You'll see that this has gone to a 1 inch. It doesn't change automatically because I wanted to leave this as something you could customize. Maybe you want to go even larger, but at a minimum, it needs to go to a 1. So we see it expanded to 1, but hey, my shop actually does 1.25 inches. Okay, we can customize that. And our bill of materials is going to reflect that as well. We can find, yep, there's our 1.25 inches right there, 1.25 inch hex nut and lock washer. Very exciting. So bill of materials updating, love it. We see that same mounting attachment information. Let's call this one a beam clamp. If we go into our bill of materials, we should see an 1.25 inch beam clamp in here somewhere. There it is, right there. Very nice. All right, so most of that very similar to what our trapeze family was doing with regards to the hardware. It's just an instance property now. And then the mounting attachment, very similar. Let's look at the type properties. Rod adjustments, again, we have those options for additional rod length and rod length rounding. When we have, I'm going to come back to this one because we're going to need to load another parameter sync rolling, but we have that same ancillary information available to us, right? So we can really customize this. You know, if we, maybe we want to say that this clever hanger comes with shield, right? We're not going to get any new geometry, but if we look back at our bill of materials here, we should see that our 18-inch clevis hanger has now been updated to say with shield plane as well. So again, those ancillaries providing a nice option to customize. One thing I didn't go over is the option to disable hardware or mounting attachments. If I was to uncheck mounting attachment here, let's see, we called that a beam clamp, right? We should see that beam clamp information. The geometry is going to disappear and our model should disappear as well. Yeah, I don't see beam clamp in here anymore. So if we're not trying to capture that information, hey, you know what? Our shop has plenty of hardware. They know how to build this thing. We don't need to capture it in a bill of materials. Uncheck enable hardware here, and we're going to see that that hardware disappears from the geometry and from our bill of materials. So this is going to be a common characteristic of all these families. So as we go through each of these pipe hangers, they all kind of have that same functionality, a nominal list of nominal diameters that they support, a recommended hardware size at each nominal diameter, and then these properties that can be adjusted, including their hanger attachment description. So I'll just go through each one of these. Same thing, swivel ring hanger, our clevis roller, and our trapeze roller. So if we look at these guys, we'll see that there's this default value that comes in here for the description, but I want a more description for this thing, more detail. How do I get that? Well, there's another parameter sync rule for that. Let's go ahead and load it in back to our configuration exchange and the default configurations. I'm going to load in this pipe and duct hangers one here, and I'm going to load in the cable hangers one as well. We'll need that in a little bit. And now, if I give this guy a nudge, it should update. Nope, because I broke my own rule. I did not enable those when I brought them in. Remember, those are disabled by default. Try this again. And there we go. We see that it's updated with that information. What's neat here is that the description is still, we could still specify that beam clamp, but it's not going to show up in our bill of materials because, hey, we got plenty of those. But one thing I did add for this that I think is pretty neat, coming back to the type properties, we can customize that description a little bit. You know what? We don't need to say that it includes hardware because we know it does. And we don't need to include that mounting attachment information either. We hit apply, and we see that that description has been updated to no longer reflect that, maybe additional information that wasn't quite necessary for our particular shop. So each of these hangers has that same functionality. Each of them should now be updating with that information and can be customized, that description, based on our selection within the type properties there. So stuff, I hope. Let's move on to the duct hangers. They're going to operate very similarly. They have a nominal diameter, but there's basically no limit here. You can grow this to whatever size you need. We have this cable hanger, which is really a cool family that I was able to develop. It looks a little generic though, doesn't it? And this was again, in our mentality of trying to keep these things light while also giving you the option to customize some stuff. If we look at the type properties of this, we have some different parameters associated. In this case, we have this cable attachment area. So I know Gripple makes a dozen or so different types of attachments. What this will allow you to do is to specify what that cable attachment here actually is. So this is a Gripple connector, I don't know, Gripple connector bottom. And we hit apply here. We should see that the bill of materials somewhere in here has a, yep, there it is, Gripple 6-inch Gripple connector bottom. So we really, again, have that option to customize and call this thing out, capture that bill of materials, just like we did with the other supports that we saw. All right, we can customize the size of that attachment as well. And then again, we can customize the ancillary information, what's captured within this thing, and what's captured within the description. So saddle duct hangers work very similarly. The only difference between them, these two here, these two have cable, and these two over here are going to have rod in them. So if we look at the properties here, it's going to be more similar to our pipe hangers. There's no cable attachment section to this. And instead, there is now hardware information that was missing from the cable variants of this. So lots of bill of material capturing there. We have 14 minutes left. I'm gonna speed through this last section really quickly here. And hopefully I won't miss anything. You'll notice these 4 schedules here. Let's choose one of these trapeze here. No, that one gets fine. Let's grab this one, our Clevis, and let's re-enable the hardware and all this stuff, right? I've added in a new parameter called assembly ID. Now you could set this manually, and let's just call this, type, let's call this P1. And what's neat here, if we come back to our project browser, we now have this P1 assembly. And if we look under BOM by assembly, we'll actually see that it's been broken off into its own section with all of the parts that are associated with that type of assembly. So you can really start to hone in what's needed to build a P1 assembly. Now that's manual. I've added in some functionality for automating this. I might not be able to have the time to do this. Let's try and do it really quick. I'm going to just, I don't want to do this. Let's see. We're a little tight on time. There is functionality to automate this, very similar to how we renumber our other hangers and supports. And it would basically allow you to automate adding a unique assembly ID for each unique configuration within your project. I will do another video on that soon, maybe in office hours or something. It's pretty neat functionality. And then being able to see the individual assemblies broken out, pretty cool. But all right, I'm gonna pause there and jump back to the PowerPoint because I do have some other stuff I want to share with you guys, and I only have 12 minutes to do it. Let's take a look. All right, so that was a lot in a very short amount of time. Let's look at coming soon. I mentioned before that we want to be able to support RFA workflows from start to finish. To that end, we are working on getting accurate pipe fittings to support the following 8 piping systems. Bunch of carbon steel, some forged steel, some copper, some cast iron, a lot of great stuff in there. All in, it'll be over 3,500 unique fitting permutations when you multiply the part size and part types that'll be available to you. But at the beginning, I said that I was not abandoning ITMs, and to that end, sorry, I missed the line there. We're going to have Harrison coding integration as well. Excited about that. But at the beginning, I said I'm not abandoning ITMs. We very much believe in that workflow as well as being a valid option. Today, to that end, we are in the process of updating our origin database to bring some stuff up to manufacturer spec, including these 4 services here. So look for that in the near future. Both of these are in progress and coming in the next few months. I'm really excited about these. Existing customers, you guys will be seeing this stuff soon. Improved Harrison code availability will be part of that as well. Some other content. I mentioned this before, hanger placement compatibility for the pipe and duct hangers. I'm very sorry this didn't make it into the 8.0 release, but it's coming soon. We are working on this. Right now, when you get the new pipe and duct hangers, you'll have to place those manually, but they will eventually work with our placement tool and automatically place on your pipe and duct, as well as automatically adjust the rod length for each hanger. And we are, just like we added the expanded hardware options to the new trapeze families, we are adding 5/8 inch hardware to our existing strut hangers with the 8.2 release that'll be following 8.0 very shortly. Okay, on the roadmap, this is probably the biggest one. We are working on a way for you to be able to download new families directly from Evolve. What this means is that I will be able to release content way more frequently than I currently can. Whether that's beta content, fixes, or new stuff altogether, this is going to be absolutely huge. We're also going to have some web presence for that as well. Some of this will be, this is my hope. We're going to possibly rebrand the family browser to content browser because there are other improvements coming to it, including improved access to the system families, improved access to utility rules. You saw me load in those parameter sync rules today. I realize that can be a bit of a burden, and knowing when to load them in, knowing what to load in. I want to provide some functionality so when you go to the family browser, the content browser, and load in a given family, and it needs these 3 parameter sync rules, how do you know that those are needed? Can I load them in with it? We're looking into ways to make that a little bit easier for you through the content family browser. Improved access to the origin database, improved images for all content. You saw today that I updated the images for the existing strut hangers. I plan on going through our entire database of content and improving all the images to a little bit more user-friendly. I mentioned this before, preview of content while in card view, and just overall general user interface improvements. More RFA support, piping equipment, accessories, and terminals. I have a bunch of those planned out. Those are likely going to be closer to our 9.0 release. That'll be sometime next year, but those are getting scoped out now. And once I'm done with 8.2, they will be put on the cutting board for me to do some work. And then these are some long shot ones based on customer feedback, content training as a service and custom content as a service. These are very much still getting fleshed out, but things that we are talking about internally. With that said, here is the roadmap as it stands right now. This is everything I went over today. The recap went over what we have completed. This is everything that's coming in 8.0. I'm really sorry I didn't get to go into the assembly schedules a little bit more in detail, but we'll put out a video or something for that soon. Next, we just talked about the RFA support and ITM expansion. Oh yeah, I forgot I added this. There's some more work I want to do with the cable hangers. And then I mentioned hanger placement support for pipe and duct hangers. That's coming immediately following the 8.0 release. And then here, everything I just showed on that last slide is later, not quite scoped out fully yet, but very much on our radar as things that need to get done. With that said, we are almost at time. I have 2 QR codes here for you today. The first one on the left is our features page. This is where all those features, those quotes I showed you at the beginning, where those user posts came from. Please use this QR code, go to that page and add your feedback. Let me know what content you need. Let me know what content would make your workflow easier. Maybe there's just an enhancement on some of the content that you want to see. Add it to that page. I will see it. I will note it as one of my product insights and use that as ammunition for development down the road. Speaking of the road, if you would like to keep up with the roadmap and see what I am planning to do, please use that QR code there. That will take you to the public interfacing roadmap that I have sketched out currently. Everything you just saw on that previous slide, you'll be able to see as I make updates to that, see as status changes happen, see as things actually make it to the drawing board. Okay, like I'm talking a mile a minute here. All right, I see 2 questions here. If you have any other questions, please drop them in. What happens if you have multiple hardware sizes checked? It'll use the first one within the list. That's a standard we have in all of our multiple checkbox situations. So whatever is highest checked in the list, that's the one it'll use. Lester asks, when will that version of Evolve be enabled for Revit 2025? Our 8.0 release coming soon. I don't have an exact date for you. Coming soon is our compatibility release for Revit 2025. So when Evolve 8.0 comes out, you will have support for Revit 2025. All right. 5 minutes to go. Any other questions? You guys have been a very quiet audience today. Hopefully this was helpful to you. Give it a minute here. As I said earlier, in 4 weeks, the third week of October, we will be doing another webinar. That one's going to dive into some of the equipment families that we released in 7.4 and how to configure them. Okay, I see a question in there. Can you have the double rod roller hanger be able to be connected from below? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Sean, you have an idea on that one? You still with me, Sean? No.
I think he means possibly being supported from below. So deck mounted,
Oh,
possibly.
that's interesting. One of the roof supports should be similar to that already then, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's a good point. Let's take a look at that really quick. Yeah. Let's see. No, that's not gonna do it. Let's go to roof supports. Do you mean like this guy? Let's find out. So we have this Eaton product here. Anonymous attendee, is that what you were looking for? Something like that? All right. Okay, to have adjustability without the stand. That's something we can definitely look into. Let me make a note of that. And that's, I mean, we have all the tools to make that happen. So let me dive into that. If you want to reach out to us, or if you can post on the features board with your email, that would be really helpful, because then I could reach out to you directly and get some more details on that as well and how that would function. All right. Got a couple minutes here. Any other questions? Comments, feedback? Loving it all.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Lucas, for presenting this to us today. And to our audience, thank you for coming. We hope that you found the information valuable. And as we mentioned at the top, this recording will be available on YouTube. So make sure you're following us over there. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.